My name is Dorothy Hale, and for most of my life my home in Cedar Springs was the one place that felt steady, no matter what storms found me. That changed in ways I never imagined, and on the afternoon my youngest son walked through my front door in full uniform, every hidden truth in this house rose to the surface. I was on my knees scrubbing the hardwood floor when I heard the door open. My hands were shaking around the damp cloth. My back burned. The smell of bleach had become something I breathed like air. I kept wiping the same clean spot because in that house, stopping was never a choice I could make for myself. Then I heard his voice. "Mom." I froze. My heart clenched so tight I lost my breath. I turned and saw Adam Hale standing in the doorway, still wearing the dust of deployment on his boots. He had not even taken a full step inside before his eyes locked on me, kneeling, trembling, wearing an apron that was not mine. The smile he brought home with him disappeared in seconds. "Mom, what happened to you?" Behind me the room went silent. Marissa Hale held a glass of sweet tea that nearly slipped from her hand. Her mother Gloria stared with her mouth half open. Dylan lowered the remote as if he had been caught stealing something. And Caleb Hale sat on the arm of the sofa with the look of a man wishing Adam had stayed overseas just one more day. I tried to speak, but shame rose faster than sound. Adam stepped beside me and lifted my hand the way someone lifts something fragile. His fingers hovered over the marks on my wrist, the redness, the swelling, the tremor I could not stop. "Mom," he said quietly, "who did this?" It was not a question. It was the beginning. After my husband passed, the house felt too big for my own footsteps. Grief has a way of turning familiar rooms into shadows, and silence into something heavy enough to swallow you whole. That was when my eldest son, Caleb Hale, started showing up more often. At first it felt like comfort. A good son checking on his mother. Someone to lean on while I learned how to live in a world without my husband in it. He carried himself with the confidence of a man who knew things I did not. He would sit at the kitchen table with bills spread out like cards and talk about interest rates, insurance forms, and county requirements. "Mom, these papers are confusing. Let me take care of it. You should not worry about this kind of thing anymore." Grief makes simple things seem impossible, so I agreed. Caleb became the keeper of information. Mail that once came to my hands now stopped at his. Phone calls I used to answer became calls he returned for me. And whenever I asked questions he would sigh just a little and say he was only trying to protect me. One afternoon he showed up with a new set of house keys, said it was safer this way. Said break-ins were common lately, said updated locks were part of being responsible. I held the key like it should have meant something to me. Only later did I realize he had never shown me who else had one. Then came the forms. "Just sign here, Mom, it is routine. Just a quick signature so the county knows everything is in order. Widows have to update these things." The words sounded practical, comforting even. He spoke the way a doctor speaks before giving a shot, calm enough to override the fear. I signed because I trusted him. Little by little the house no longer felt like mine. Rooms shifted. Boundaries blurred. Every decision seemed to pass through Caleb first. He had a way of speaking that made me feel like resisting him was the same as making a mistake. As if saying no meant I did not understand my own life. Looking back now I see the pattern. It did not happen with shouting or threats. It happened with the quiet rearranging of my choices until the house was still mine on paper, but no longer mine in practice. It was early spring when Caleb first mentioned that Marissa's family needed a place to stay for a little while. He said it casually, the way someone mentions rain in the forecast. "Nothing to worry about, Mom. Just until they get things sorted. You will barely notice them." I wanted to believe him. Marissa arrived with a suitcase that looked too full for a short visit. Behind her came her mother Gloria Patterson, carrying a basket of folded towels like she already belonged there. And trailing them was Dylan, her younger brother, eyes fixed on his phone as he walked straight into my living room without so much as a hello. At first I tried to be gracious. I told myself it was temporary. Families help families. But days stretched into weeks, and the rhythm of the house changed in ways I could feel but could not name. Gloria claimed the kitchen before I even realized she was in it. She rearranged the cabinets because it made more sense her way. Marissa spread her things across the guest room and then the hallway closet, and then the bathroom shelves. Dylan sprawled across the sofa each night as though he had always lived there. What unsettled me most was how quickly they stopped asking permission. Gloria would hand me grocery lists written in her neat cursive and say, "I will need these by tonight." Marissa would leave baskets of laundry outside my bedroom door with a soft reminder that certain fabrics needed gentle handling. I found myself apologizing for sitting in my own armchair because Dylan had decided it was his spot now. Somewhere along the way I started whispering when I walked through the house. I hesitated before turning on the television. I asked if it was all right to make tea. Their presence spread through the house, like fog seeping into corners, until even my breathing felt like something I had to make small. The worst part was realizing I had become a guest in the house I once built from nothing. Adam had written to me a week before saying his unit was finally rotating home, but he never gave a date. He liked surprising me. He said it made deployments feel shorter when he imagined the look on my face. I used to picture myself opening the door with a smile. I never imagined he would be the one opening it to find me kneeling on the floor, like I had no right to stand. When he walked in that afternoon, time collapsed around us. I could not stop shaking. I kept my eyes down the way I had learned to in that house. It was easier that way. It kept the peace. But Adam was trained to notice what others overlook. His gaze swept across the room in one sharp motion. The tension. The stiffness. The way Marissa set down her glass like she was afraid it might shatter. The way Caleb rose from the sofa with a measured slowness, as if deciding whether to smile or defend himself. "Mom," he said again, softer this time, "how long has this been going on?" I opened my mouth but no words came. Shame is a thick thing. It fills your throat before you even understand why. Caleb stepped forward. "It is not what it looks like. Mom likes staying busy. We have been helping her." Helping. The word landed between us like a stone. Adam looked back at me. His eyes were no longer confused. They were hurt. Deeply. Quietly. The kind of hurt that comes from realizing the person you trusted to be your brother has built his power on the back of your mother's silence. He exhaled once and everything in him shifted. The soldier in him took over. The protector. The son. "Get your things, Mom," he said. "We are leaving." Marissa gasped. Gloria stood up ready to argue. Caleb muttered something about Adam not understanding the situation, but Adam did not raise his voice. He simply offered me his hand. And for the first time in months I felt permission to stand. The motel room Adam brought me to was small and worn, but the moment the door shut behind us, I felt air return to my lungs. No eyes watching me, no footsteps pacing behind my back, no voices telling me what I should be doing. Just quiet, a kind of quiet I had forgotten existed. Adam helped me sit on the edge of the bed. He moved slowly, the way someone moves when they are afraid the person they love might break under their hands. He knelt in front of me, still in uniform, still breathing with that steady control they must teach them in the service. "Mom," he said, "tell me everything, please." I tried to hold myself together. I really did. But once a dam cracks, the water decides the rest. Words slipped out in short, uneven pieces. How Caleb told me the papers were standard county updates. How he said Adam wanted everything handled while he was gone. How Marissa and her family needed a temporary place. How temporary became permanent. How my own voice slowly disappeared inside my home. I told him how the locks were changed without me knowing. How my bank statements started arriving opened. How I was told repeatedly that I could not understand certain things without help. I told him how I started apologizing for moving too slowly or speaking too softly. How the house became a place where I did not belong, unless I was working. Through it all, Adam stayed still. His jaw tightened, but he did not interrupt. When I finally fell silent, he stood and walked to the window, his back straight as a line drawn with purpose. "This stops now," he said quietly. He picked up his phone and dialed a number without hesitation. His voice changed when he spoke. Controlled, direct. He identified himself and requested immediate legal guidance through the Military's Assistance Office. For the first time since my husband died, I felt something close to safety. Not because the danger was gone yet, but because my son had finally come home to see it. Adam returned to the house the next morning just after sunrise. He went alone. I watched him leave the motel parking lot with a knot in my stomach, afraid of what Caleb might do and afraid of what Adam might discover. But Adam moved with the calm certainty of someone who had already decided the truth mattered more than anyone's comfort. Before he even reached the front steps, he had already turned on the small recording device tucked into his jacket. He later told me he wanted every detail preserved exactly as it unfolded. The condition of the house, the way people spoke, the way they reacted when confronted. He said evidence is not just facts. It is behavior. Caleb opened the door with a mix of false surprise and annoyance, as if Adam showing up again were some kind of inconvenience. "What are you doing back here?" Caleb asked. Adam stepped inside without waiting for permission. "Where are the documents Mom signed?" Caleb laughed, a short, stiff sound. "You do not walk in here demanding things. You do not know how things work around here." Adam scanned the room with careful eyes. He noticed the clutter, the bills scattered across the table, the laundry baskets, the drawers left open as if searched through hurriedly. He took pictures one by one while Caleb followed behind him, demanding explanations. "You need to leave," Caleb insisted. "Mom wanted this. She made these choices. Stop trying to create drama." Those words, "Mom wanted this." Adam paused long enough for the recorder to capture them clearly. Then he turned. "Show me the paperwork." Caleb hesitated. His face went still the way a man's face goes still when he realizes the ground beneath him has shifted. But Adam waited, a long, steady silence that left no room for escape. Finally, Caleb walked to the bedroom and pulled out a stack of folders from the dresser. Adam photographed every page: transfers of authority, joint access forms, a deed modification request, all filled out in Caleb's handwriting except for my signature at the bottom. Adam did not shout. He did not threaten. He simply gathered the evidence and walked out the door. Caleb followed him onto the porch. "This is all being blown out of proportion," he said. "Mom needed guidance. I gave it." Adam looked at him with a calm I can only describe as heartbreaking. "You took advantage of a grieving woman," he said. "That ends today." When Adam returned to the modal, he carried not just folders and photographs but a heaviness in his shoulders that told me he had seen more than he expected. He laid everything out on the small table and went through each paper with a precision that made my hands tremble. Every signature, every date, every note written in the margins. He handled them as if touching the evidence of my pain required care. 2 hours later, there was a knock on the door. A woman introduced herself as a representative from Adult Protective Services. Beside her stood an investigator from the State Elder Justice Unit. Their presence felt unreal, like something that happened to other families in news stories. Not people like us, not in our quiet town, but Adam had moved quickly. He had already forwarded everything he documented. They came because the situation was no longer a family disagreement. It was a case. They spoke to me gently but directly. They asked about the daily routines in the house, about who controlled my finances, about how decisions were made. They asked whether I felt pressured, whether I felt watched, whether I felt free. I realized I could not answer yes to any of those questions. The investigator leaned forward slightly. "What happened to you is not a misunderstanding," she said. "It meets every marker of coercive control. You were isolated, manipulated, exploited financially. None of this is your fault." I wanted to believe her, but guilt clung to my ribs like vines. Then she asked the question I had been avoiding without even knowing it. "Are you ready to stand on your truth even if the person we investigate is your own son?" The room grew quiet. Adam did not speak for me. He just waited. I nodded. A small, careful nod, but it was enough. The investigator closed her notebook. "Then let us begin," she said. The investigators decided the next step had to happen immediately. They wanted to see the house, the environment, the people inside it. They asked if I was willing to return with them, and though my stomach nodded at the thought, I said yes. Adam stayed close to me as we followed their car down familiar streets that suddenly felt foreign. When we pulled into the driveway, Caleb was standing on the porch with his arms crossed, as if he had been waiting to intercept us. His expression shifted the moment he saw the two state officials step out of the car. Not anger, not confusion, something closer to fear wrapped in arrogance. Marissa opened the door behind him and froze. Gloria appeared moments later, clutching her cardigan as though the fabric could shield her from the truth she already sensed. Dylan peeked from the hallway, pale and wide-eyed. The investigator introduced herself and explained why they were there. Her voice was calm but firm, the kind of tone that does not invite argument. Caleb tried anyway. "This is unnecessary," he said. "Mom is fine. We have been helping her. This is all being twisted." "We will determine that," the investigator replied. "Please step aside." Inside the house they documented everything. The locked cabinets, the piles of unpaid bills Caleb insisted he had managed, the laundry baskets placed outside my room, the medication stored in places I had not known about. They took photographs, asked questions, observed the reactions around them. When they requested financial records, Caleb hesitated just long enough to confirm their suspicions. His explanations tangled together. He claimed I had given him verbal permission for joint access. He claimed the deed modification had been my idea. He claimed the transfers were temporary. But Marissa cracked first. She stepped forward with a trembling voice. Caleb told us it was already approved, she said. He told us no one would question it because his mother trusted him. He said it was all handled. Caleb whipped his head toward her, but the damage was done. The investigator wrote something in her notebook without looking up. This is no longer a question of misunderstanding, she said. This is exploitation. For the first time I saw Caleb's confidence falter. His face tightened. His jaw clenched. The house he built on silence was beginning to fall apart. The investigators called for law enforcement once they finished their walkthrough. I stood in the entryway gripping the railing while the house buzzed, with a kind of tension I had never felt before. It was as if every wall had finally found a voice and none of them were on Caleb's side. 2 officers arrived, speaking quietly with the state team before stepping into the living room. Caleb straightened his shoulders as if rank or posture could save him. He lifted his chin, wearing the same expression he used when lecturing me about responsibility. Sir, one officer said, "We need you to step forward." Caleb scoffed. For what? For taking care of my mother. For doing what none of you bothered to do. The officer did not respond. He simply removed a small case from his belt, opened it, and held out a hand. Your badge and your weapon, please. Caleb froze. The color drained from his face. That single moment cracked whatever confidence he had left. Slowly, with shaking hands, he unhooked his holster and placed it on the table. The badge followed. It looked smaller than I remembered, somehow fragile now that it was no longer his shield. Marissa gasped, covering her mouth. Gloria reached for a chair. Dylan stepped back like he feared he might be asked to answer for something too. Caleb turned toward me then. His voice wavered between anger and desperation. Mom, tell them I protected you. Tell them I did this for you. For a long time I could not speak. The hallway felt longer than it had ever been. I looked at the floor he once ordered me to scrub, at the walls he filled with his rules, at the home he had slowly taken piece by piece until I no longer recognized myself in it. When I finally lifted my head, his eyes were waiting for mine. You protected Control, I said. Not me? The officer nodded slightly, as if those words were the final confirmation he needed. He guided Caleb's hands behind his back. The click of the cuffs felt like an exhale the house had held for too long. As they led him outside, he did not look back. The silence he left behind was not empty. It was freeing. When the front door finally closed behind the officers, the house felt hollow, as if every sound had been emptied out and placed somewhere new. I stood in the center of the living room, the room Caleb once treated like his command post, and let the stillness settle around me. For the first time in years, it did not feel like a place I had to survive. It felt like a place I might actually live in again. Adam stepped beside me, his presence steady. You did the hardest part, he said gently. Now we start moving forward. Moving forward turned out to be a stack of papers, meetings, and signatures. Not rushed ones, not pressured ones, but signatures I chose. The next morning, representatives from Adult Protective Services drove us to the county building. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, and the processing clerk spoke softly, almost like she knew how much noise we had already endured. They laid the documents out in front of me. The first restored full ownership of my home to me alone. The second removed every unauthorized access to my accounts. The third established a no-contact order protecting my peace from every person who had chipped away at it. My hand hovered over the first line. For a moment I remembered all the pens Caleb had placed in my hand, the impatient tap of his foot, the way he convinced me that questioning him meant I was ungrateful. But then I remembered something else, the steadiness in Adam's voice when he said I deserved better. The calm certainty of the investigators who believed me without hesitation. I signed slowly, cleanly. Not one letter shook. When we stepped outside, late afternoon sun stretched across the pavement. Adam opened the car door and waited for me to settle in before closing it with a gentleness that contrasted the months before. You did this, Ma, he said, sliding into the driver's seat. Not the investigators. Not the court. You. I breathed in deeply, letting the air fill places inside me that had been empty for too long. I was not the woman kneeling on a cold floor anymore. I was someone who had stood back up. And standing felt like coming home. A few days later, Adam asked me to come with him to a small law office on the east side of town. The parking lot was quiet, tucked between a bakery and an old insurance building. Nothing about it looked dramatic from the outside, but inside those walls, my son was about to close a chapter he once believed would last a lifetime. His attorney, a composed woman named Ms. Dillard, spread several documents across the conference table. Her voice was calm but firm, the kind of tone that didn't waste words. "These papers begin the dissolution of your marriage," she explained. "Grounds include infidelity, financial misconduct, and endangerment of your mother's welfare." Hearing myself referenced like a factor in legal paperwork made something twist in my chest. I wasn't the reason Adam was ending his marriage, but I was the line they had crossed. Adam sat straight, eyes steady as he read through each section. He didn't rush. He didn't shake. He didn't look angry anymore either, just resolved. "She'll see all of this?" he asked quietly. "She will," Ms. Dillard said. "Her attorney will review it with her. You won't have to speak to her unless the court requires it." He nodded, relief flickering across his face. I turned to him then. "You sure about this, baby? You don't owe me a divorce. You don't have to break your life because mine was shaken." He met my eyes with a steadiness I hadn't seen since he came home that day. "Ma, this isn't about breaking anything," he said. "It's about stopping what was hurting you and blinding me. I stayed loyal to someone who used us both." He picked up the pen. He hesitated only once, not from doubt but from recognition. This signature meant he was stepping away from the life he thought he had. Then he signed with one clean motion. Ms. Dillard gathered the documents, sealing them inside a manila folder. "We will file today," she said, "and we will request temporary orders regarding property, communication limitations, and access to shared accounts." As we walked out of the office into the cool evening air, Adam breathed in deeply, almost like he hadn't taken a real breath in months. "This time, Ma," he murmured, "I'm choosing my own peace too." The days that followed felt strangely quiet, as if the world was holding its breath. I spent most mornings at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of warm tea, while sunlight poured through the window that once felt like someone else's. One afternoon, Adam came home with a stack of papers tucked under his arm. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried the weight of everything he'd just learned. "Ma, sit down for this," he said gently. I obeyed, bracing myself. He laid the documents out in front of me. They were court notices, case summaries, and updates from the district attorney's office. "The state is filing formal charges," he said, "multiple counts." I swallowed hard. "Against who?" "Against all of them," he replied. "Your older son, his wife, her family, everyone involved." My stomach tightened. Even after everything, hearing it spoken aloud felt too big to hold. Adam continued, his voice steady. "Your older son is facing charges of financial exploitation, fraud, coercive control, and official misconduct. They've already suspended him. Internal Affairs is reviewing the recording. If the investigation holds and he won't get his badge back." My heart cracked at those words, not because he didn't deserve the consequences, but because I remembered the pride he once had in wearing that uniform. "And her?" I asked softly, barely able to form the question. Adam exhaled. "She's charged with conspiracy and participation in the exploitation. She's trying to shift blame, offer information, but the paper trail is too clear. And her family? Detained as co-conspirators for their financial involvement?" For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The air felt heavy but honest. "Do you hate them?" I finally whispered. Adam leaned back, thinking. "I hate what they did," he said. "I hate how easily they used your trust. But hate's heavy, Ma. I've carried enough heavy things. I'm not picking that up too." His words settled over me, warm and aching at once. "They're facing what they built," he added quietly, "and we're finally standing outside of it." The next time Adam and I sat across a table covered in paperwork, it wasn't my name written across the top of every page. It was his. We were in a small law office downtown, the kind with worn carpet and soft lamps that made even the hardest conversations feel a little less sharp. His attorney, a steady woman named Ms. Grant, spread the documents out in logical rows. "These cover dissolution of marriage, division of assets, and your statement of grounds," she explained. "We're keeping it direct. Adultery, financial betrayal, and the endangerment of your mother's welfare." I felt that last phrase strike somewhere deep inside me. I had never imagined I would be part of the grounds for my own son's divorce. But Adam didn't flinch. His jaw was set, his eyes focused, the pen resting in his hand like he already knew the answer. "You're sure?" I asked softly. "You don't have to do this because of me." He met my eyes calm and steady. "Ma, this isn't about paying a debt. This is about stopping someone who helped destroy you, and nearly destroyed me too. There's no marriage worth saving if it thrives on someone else's suffering." He signed. One clean, confident motion. The attorney gathered the papers and opened another folder. "On the criminal side," she said, "charges have been formally filed. Your brother is facing multiple felonies, your wife is out on bond under strict no-contact orders. Her family is also being held accountable." Adam nodded, expression unreadable. "And what happens now?" "There will be hearings," Grant replied. "Likely plea negotiations. Internal Affairs is already preparing their findings on your brother. If your recording holds and his career is over." I watched Adam absorb every word, not angry, not broken, just resolved. "There was a time," I whispered, "when you would have taken the blame for her." He gave a faint, tired smile. "There was a time I didn't know how much strength I had without her. Now I do." And in that quiet office, with the click of the pen and the rustle of legal papers, I realized something. This wasn't just a divorce. It was the final thread snapping between our lives and the people who had nearly destroyed us. The first night back in my own home felt unreal, like stepping into a life I had watched someone else live. The walls were the same soft cream. The hallway still curved gently toward the bedrooms. The kitchen clock still ticked with that familiar uneven rhythm. But for the first time in months, none of it felt heavy. Adam followed me inside, slow and steady, letting me take it all in. When the door clicked shut behind us, the silence felt new. Honest. No footsteps waiting to command. No voices calling my name only to give orders. Just quiet. "Sit down, Ma," he murmured. "Let yourself breathe." We sat at the kitchen table together. The same table I had once wiped endlessly under someone else's watch. I laid my palm flat on the wood. It didn't feel like labor anymore. It felt like home again. For a long time we drank tea without speaking. The refrigerator hummed softly, and a breeze slipped through the window. I could feel the house adjusting, exhaling, settling back into itself. "You know," Adam said eventually, leaning back in his chair, "I used to picture this moment overseas. Not the pain, not the mess, just us safe, talking, without anyone standing between us." A lump formed in my throat. "There were days," I whispered, "when I thought this house didn't need me anymore. Like it had moved on to someone else's life." He shook his head gently. "The house never moved on. People tried to take it. That's different." His hand covered mine, warm and steady. "You weren't small, Ma, you were tired. They used that." The truth of it settled in the air. Later, he wandered through the rooms quietly, straightening small things, opening cabinets, making sure everything that belonged to me felt like mine again. No rush, no tension, just care. When he finally sat down again, the last rays of sunlight cast a soft amber glow across the kitchen. "You home for real now?" he asked softly. I nodded, tears warming my eyes. "For real," I said, "and this time I'm staying on my feet." In that moment I felt it, not just safety but dignity returning. A woman stepping back into her own life. That evening, as the last light slipped behind the houses across the street, Adam and I sat together in a quiet that felt earned, not enforced. The house was still, but for once, the stillness didn't frighten me. It wrapped itself around us gently, like the home had been waiting for this moment as much as I had. Adam leaned forward, elbows on the table, studying my face carefully. "Ma," he said softly, "can I ask you something?" I nodded. "When they took so much control, when they pushed you into silence, why didn't they expect me to walk through that door?" I let out a slow breath. "Maybe they thought distance was the same as indifference," I said. "Maybe they believed grief had made me easier to shape, and maybe they counted on you being too far away to see the truth." He nodded, eyes thoughtful. Then he reached across the table, resting his hand over mine. "But you're not alone now," he said, "and nobody gets to rewrite your life again." Outside, a car passed by slowly, its headlights sweeping across the living room wall. Everything felt calmer, simpler, and for the first time in a long time, safe. I looked around the kitchen, the cabinets I once cleaned for someone else's convenience, the counters where I wasn't allowed to cook unless given permission, and realized something. This wasn't just a house again. It was proof that surviving isn't the same as living. And reclaiming your life isn't about dramatic moments. It's about quiet ones, about drinking tea at your own table without fear, about turning on a light without asking, about standing where you belong. Adam squeezed my hand gently. You home, Ma, really home? I smiled, small but certain. And I won't forget how hard we fought to get here. Then, speaking as much to myself as to anyone who might ever hear my story, I said, sometimes the people who hurt you the most share your last name, and sometimes the person who saves you does too. Your life, your voice, your home, they're worth protecting, no matter who you have to stand up to. If you're listening to this, I hope you remember something important. You are never too old, too tired, or too broken to take your life back. And if this story touched you, please consider liking, sharing, and commenting. Your engagement helps these stories reach someone who might need the reminder that they are not alone. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay strong, and take care of your heart.